Today I'm going to show you how to play a major scale on the violin, and I'm going to show you how to do it beginning on any pitch. For today's example, I'm just going to show you how to play a G major scale, which is the easiest scale to play on the violin. However, I'm also going to show you a pattern that you can memorize that will enable you to play a major scale starting on any pitch. And if you get good at playing your scales, well, then you're going to get much faster at learning to where to put your fingers on the violin. So you're playing much more in tune, and you'll have a great warm-up every time you get your violin out. So let's get to it. So for the first example, we're just going to learn a 1-octave G major scale, which is the easiest scale. Now 1 octave, of course, just means that it's just 8 notes, right? Then back down. So that's a really easy scale. Now, there's a pattern that's actually in your fingers, and it's the same pattern, even if it sounds different. So even if I play a different scale, let's say the A major, so I'm starting on first finger instead of open. Both of those scales actually have the same pattern in them. So now I'll show you the pattern. So in a scale, you only have 2 different kinds of distances, okay? So you have whole steps and half steps. So you're either playing a half step or a whole step. So you can see the half step and you can see the whole step. Now the whole steps are bigger, the half steps are smaller. So in a half step, the fingers will be touching, and in a whole step situation, the fingers will be separated. So in a major scale, you always have 2 half steps in the scale. So if you have 8 notes, you have half steps that occur in 2 different places between the scale degree 3 and 4 and scale degree 7 and 8. Now, what is the scale degree? Okay, well, scale degree just means that you're assigning a degree to each portion of the scale. So if you're playing a G major scale, G is scale degree 1, and then A, scale degree 2, and then B is scale degree 3. And then C is scale degree 4, and so on and so forth. So if you play an A major scale, then your scale degree 1 is an A. Scale degree 2 is a B. Scale degree 3 is a C, and so on and so forth, right? It's that simple. So with every major scale, no matter what pitch you start on, you'll always have a half step between scale degrees 3 and 4 and 7 and 8, okay? So now I'll play that G major scale again. But this time, I'm going to show you my fingers, and you'll be able to actually see the half steps and whole steps, okay? So here's scale degree 1, scale degree 2, scale degree 3. So you see that whole step? The fingers aren't touching. There's a whole step there. But remember, I need a half step between 3 and 4. So now my fingers are touching because it's a half step. Now a whole step, whole step, whole step. Now my last note, number 8, right? I'm going to have a half step. Why? Because you always have a half step between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Right? So here's my first half step between 3 and 4. Here's my last half step between 7 and 8. Now, if I play an A major scale, it's the same exact thing. So scale degree 1 is an A, just first finger, right? Scale degree 2 is a whole step. Now between 2 and 3 is also a whole step. Then a half step. So there's my half step, right? Whole step, half step. Then whole step, whole step, whole step, half step between 7 and 8. See that half step? So here's my half step. Here's my half step. Right? So as a general rule, none of your fingers will touch in a major scale except between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. That's all you have to remember. Now you can start on any pitch on the violin and it's going to be the same thing. Let's say I start on the D string. Here's that half step. Here's that half step. Same thing. Let's say I start on first finger. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. Right? So any pitch. So what I suggest is, start on just your open strings and practice playing major scales on your open strings. So you can start on the G, then you start on D, then start on the A, right? So then as you go along, and then you can start to learn 2-octave scales. Now I'll do some other videos where I teach you 2-octave scales and other kinds of scales, but it's just going to be 16 notes instead of 8 notes, right? But you still have the 3.5 steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Now here's a little helpful hint for you. When you're playing your scales, now I've said before in a lot of my other videos that scales are really, really, really good for you because they help train your fingers. Because on a violin, you don't have any frets like a guitar, right? So you have to memorize basically where your fingers go and then use your ear to kind of fine tune that, So one way, now all pieces that you play, everything that you play on the violin is made of scales, basically. So if you practice your scales and you practice them correctly, your fingers are automatically going to know where to go most of the time to some extent because you played your scales so much. Your fingers will know the patterns of music. So one thing that you can do, of course you always want to warm up with your scales, but one thing that you want to make sure that you learn when you're practicing your scales is to keep your fingers down. You want to keep your fingers down for a variety of reasons, but a big one is because of efficiency. Because when you play a scale, it only takes one motion to put my finger down. But what if I pick my fingers up? Right? Now I've got 2 motions. One motion down, then I have to pick it up, then one down, and then pick it up, right? So you've effectively doubled the amount of work that you have to do. Plus, what if you have to use that finger again? Well, now you have to place it again because you picked it up, right? Right? So if you want to play fast, keep your fingers down, and then it's really easy to do that. Why? Because they're already down. So as a general rule, you don't want to pick your fingers up unless you have to. Right? It'll make your pitch much more consistent and make your left hand work much more efficiently. So guys, I hope this video helped. And hey, if you have any other questions about major scales, just put them down below and I answer them. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that alert bell because I'm making videos all the time. And don't forget, here at Kennedy Violins, we are players and teachers. So if you have any other kind of questions about anything, hey, give us a call anytime. Have a great day.